So this concealer trend is one of the most viral trends on TikTok right now, and it is supposed to give you brighter under eyes. But will it work on dark circles? I'm going to attempt it today to find out, and I'm going to do the trend only on one side, and on the other side I'm going to apply my concealer like I usually do, so we can compare the two sides. But first I need some base makeup on, so I'm going to start with the Milk Hydro Grip Primer. This is a super sticky primer, and that's why they call it a gripping primer, because when you apply makeup over this like a foundation or concealer, it's going to grip onto your skin and not move, and that'll make the makeup long lasting. For foundation, I'm going to be using the KVD Good Apple foundation. This is a full coverage serum foundation, and I'm using the shade 45. This is for medium skin with neutral undertones. And to apply it, I'm using the Real Techniques foundation brush. This is my favorite foundation brush. It's so useful, so easy, and so easy to clean as well. And if you observe, I'm not applying foundation underneath my eye because that's where we'll be trying the concealer technique. And if this concealer technique will work, it'll cut down so many different steps for me as well as for you if this works. So let's find out. As I explained before, on my right side, I'm going to apply concealer like I usually do. So I'm starting here with color correcting my dark circles. From the NYX color correcting palette, I'm using a peach shade, and I'm using that to neutralize my dark circle just on my right side. This is how I usually do it. So according to the brightening ombre concealer technique on the left side, you don't have to do any of this. So it'll be nice to compare and see if it really works. For the next step, I use a concealer that's a true match to my skin tone to apply it over the color corrector. And the one that I'm using today is the Milani concealer, which is my absolute favorite concealer. And I'm using the shade 145, which is an exact match to my skin tone. I'm going to let it sit and dry for a couple minutes before I blend it out. That's when you get full coverage. If you blend it out immediately, it can give you sheer coverage, and some of the product can get absorbed into the sponge or the brush that you use for blending it out. And sometimes it can also mix with that peach corrector. And as you can see, it has completely concealed my dark circles. I'm also going to be using that concealer around my mouth. The third step is to use a lighter shade of concealer. This is the Milani concealer in the shade 135. And I'm going to use this to brighten up under my eyes or to highlight it. So again, I'm going to apply it and let it sit for a couple minutes before I blend it out. Now, because we've first used a color corrector, then a concealer that's a true match to my skin, before we are using this concealer, which is a brightening concealer, it's not going to give you ashy tones after blending everything out. And as you can see, those three steps have not just concealed my dark circles completely, it has also brightened my under eye. Now I'm going to set this with powder, and for that I'm using the One Size blurring powder. And that should give a soft blur and a flawless under eye. And as you can see, that looks fabulous as compared to the left side. And for the last step, I'm going to be using a little bit of blush. This is the Rare Beauty Soft Pinch Liquid Blush in the shade Grateful. And now we're ready for the left side to compare it with the right side. So on the left side, I'm going to be attempting the viral TikTok ombre concealer trend, starting with the lightest shade of concealer, Milani concealer in the shade 135, which I'll be applying closest to my inner corner. Next, I'm going to be applying the concealer that's a true match to my skin right beside it. Next to that, I'm going to be using a light shade of blush. This is the Rare Beauty blush in Happy, followed by a deeper blush in Grateful. So that's the ombre technique. It starts with a lighter shade of concealer, a deeper shade of concealer, a lighter shade of blush, and a deeper shade of blush. We're going to let it sit for a couple minutes, just like we did on the right side. And then it's time to blend it out. I'm going to be using a concealer brush by Laura Geller, and I'm going to start blending from the lightest concealer going outward and upward to the deepest blush. And let's not forget, we've applied this directly over my dark circle without color correcting. It's definitely very brightening so far, and it has completely covered my dark circle. Right here, you'll see I'm extremely confused and surprised. It took me a couple of minutes to realize what was happening here, and then I continued on with my blending from the lighter blush to the deeper blush. Because Rare Beauty blushes are so pigmented, I use so little, but we'll fix that later. But for now, I was just so confused as to how it was able to cover up everything as well as brighten my under eye while I have dark circles. I'm usually skeptical when someone calls it a trend, and I also had wipes in front of me just to wipe it off because I felt like it's definitely not going to work, but it did. But how did it work? I'm going to give you my logic, but I'd love to hear from you. So leave a comment before I tell you how this worked. I'm going to quickly set this with powder to see if it makes any difference. It's definitely still very brightening under the eye, and I'm going to add a little bit more blush to match up with the other side. And here's a side-by-side comparison. I'm going to quickly finish the rest of the face. On my lips, I used the Makeup Forever lip liner in the shade Universal Earth before I topped it off with the Fenty Gloss Bomb in the shade Glass Slipper. As you can see, both sides are equally brightening and they look fantastic. But if I can do it in just one step, do I have to follow so many different steps like I usually do? I feel like it ended up working on my left side, although I have intense dark circles, is because we still used a concealer that's a true match to my skin, and the blushes kind of act like a color corrector. And of course, we had the lighter shade of concealer to brighten everything up. But I'd love to hear from you, so leave your comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to thumbs up and let me know what you'd like to watch next. Click on the View Products link embedded within the video to check all the products that I used today, or you can also check the description box right below this video. I love you guys so much, and I will see you soon with a brand new one. Bye, guys.